January 1943. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly, a dark expanse of rolling water and shadow. Somewhere in that cold immensity, the USS Wahoo prowled just beneath the waves. On her bridge stood Lieutenant Commander Richard Hetherington O'Kane, a quiet, sharp-eyed officer whose life was about to change forever. The Wahoo's skipper was Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton, bold, unorthodox, and ferociously aggressive. Where others saw risk, Morton saw opportunity. Most submarine commanders of the time followed the rule book. Fire torpedoes from a safe distance, dive deep before the enemy could respond, and live to fight another day. But Morton believed in something else entirely. To him, a submarine wasn't a hiding vessel. It was a predator. Silent, lethal, and built to stalk the enemy from within their own waters. On Wahoo's third war patrol in January 1943, Morton brought O'Kane face to face with his philosophy. Their mission took them into Wewak Harbor, New Guinea, one of the most heavily defended Japanese strongholds in the South Pacific. In the dead of night, under a thin moon, Wahoo crept into the harbor at periscope depth. Japanese destroyers crisscrossed the entrance. Searchlights raked the sea. Most commanders would have turned back. Morton ordered, "Battle stations! Torpedo!" From the control room, O'Kane watched Morton fire at point-blank range, then swing the sub broadside and fire again. 4 Japanese ships erupted in flame. The sea turned to chaos, gunfire, alarms, explosions echoing across the bay. Somehow, Wahoo slipped through it all, diving just as depth charges shattered the water above. That night, O'Kane learned what it meant to strike first, and strike hard. The lessons of Wahoo would define the rest of his life. Over the months that followed, Wahoo became a name whispered in fear across the Pacific. Morton's tactics, surface attacks at night, relentless pursuit, and lightning-fast torpedo salvos changed submarine warfare forever. And beside him, O'Kane absorbed every detail. How to read the sea, how to predict a convoy's zigzag, how to lead men in the silence between attacks. When Wahoo failed to return from her 7th patrol in October 1943, O'Kane was heartbroken. His mentor and crew were gone, but their spirit burned inside him. A few weeks later, he received command of a new submarine, the USS Tang, a Balao-class vessel bristling with power and technology. She was faster, deeper diving, and deadlier than any submarine before her, and O'Kane intended to use every ounce of her potential. From the day Tang left Pearl Harbor in January 1944, her crew knew they served under a man unlike any other. O'Kane drilled them relentlessly, torpedo loading, crash dives, silent running, until they moved as one. Every man aboard understood that survival meant perfection. "You don't get second chances down here," O'Kane told them. "If we make a mistake, we don't come home." His first patrol into the Caroline Islands was textbook O'Kane. Fast, precise, and fearless. Where other captains would track a target for hours, O'Kane attacked without hesitation. In one engagement, he fired 6 torpedoes at a Japanese convoy from inside its own formation, threading through destroyer screens as shells rained down around him. Within minutes, 3 ships were sinking. Tang dove deep, listening as the ocean filled with the echo of rupturing hulls. By the end of that patrol, Tang had sunk 5 enemy ships. Her success was so stunning that O'Kane was awarded the Navy Cross. But he wasn't satisfied. He had seen how Japan's convoys moved, how the empire's lifelines of oil, steel, and food flowed north and south across the Pacific. To destroy Japan, those arteries had to be cut. On his second patrol in April 1944, Tang entered the Formosa Strait, a narrow, dangerous corridor between Formosa and the Chinese mainland. Every mile bristled with patrols, mines, and aircraft. But O'Kane pressed on. His attacks were surgical. Quick surface strikes under the cover of darkness, followed by silent escapes into the black. Over 3 weeks, Tang destroyed 10 ships, totaling over 40,000 tons. It was one of the most successful submarine patrols in naval history. The Navy called Kane a genius. His crew called him unshakable. Under fire, his voice never rose above a calm, firm tone. When depth charges exploded so close the lights flickered, he would simply murmur, "Hold her steady, boys." His composure gave his men courage. They trusted him completely. In June 1944, Kane steered Tang into the most dangerous waters in the Pacific, the Yellow Sea. It was shallow, mined, and swarming with Japanese escorts. The risk was almost suicidal, but Kane believed surprise would protect them. Over the course of several weeks, Tang attacked convoys carrying troops and vital supplies to Japan. One night, after tracking a massive transport for hours, Kane fired a spread of torpedoes that struck home. The ship was later discovered to have been carrying more than 3,000 soldiers, the deadliest single submarine attack of the war. By July, Tang had sunk 13 ships in one patrol, a record that would never be surpassed. Kane's Third Navy Cross and a Presidential Unit citation followed, but he credited his crew above all. "No skipper ever had a finer bunch of men," he said. Then came the fateful Fifth Patrol, the one that would immortalize Tang and seal her fate. In September 1944, Kane and his men set sail from Pearl Harbor on what would be their final mission. The war had turned. Japan's empire was collapsing, but its convoys still carried troops and oil to the Philippines, and Kane's orders were clear: cut them off completely. By October 10th, Tang was in the Formosa Strait again, hunting relentlessly. In one engagement, she destroyed an entire convoy in a single night. 5 ships sent to the bottom in less than 2 hours. Survivors clung to wreckage as Tang slipped away, unseen beneath the waves. Kane's success continued for 2 more weeks. On October 24th, he sank his 13th ship of the patrol, making Tang the most successful submarine in U.S. history. But fate was waiting. That night, near the north coast of Formosa, Tang encountered a final target, a transport limping along under escort. Kane fired his last torpedo, number 24. The men in the control room held their breath as it sped away. Then, a sound none of them expected. A sharp clang, then silence. Seconds later, came the nightmare realization. The torpedo had malfunctioned, curved in a deadly circle, and was coming straight back toward them. Kane shouted for evasive action, but there was no time. The torpedo struck Tang's stern and detonated. The explosion tore the submarine in half. Water rushed in. Men were thrown from their stations. Some were killed instantly. Kane and a handful of crew were blown overboard into the dark Pacific night. The rest went down with the ship. When dawn broke, Japanese destroyers swept the area and captured the survivors. Beaten, starved, and interrogated, Kane endured months of torture in Formosa as a prisoner of war. He was the only commanding officer of a U.S. submarine to survive his boat's loss in combat. When the war finally ended, Kane returned home a hero. But his thoughts never left the men who didn't return. His official record listed 24 enemy ships sunk, over 100,000 tons destroyed. Yet for Kane, the numbers meant little. What mattered were the faces of his crew, the laughter in the wardroom, the silent focus during battle, the brotherhood that only men who fought beneath the sea could understand. In 1946, he received the Medal of Honor for Tang's final patrol, recognition for unmatched courage, skill, and leadership. But when asked about it years later, Kane simply said, "It belonged to the crew. I only drove the boat." Today, the name USS Tang lives on in naval history as the embodiment of courage and sacrifice. Her commander, Richard Kane, changed submarine warfare forever. proving that victory in the deep belonged not to the cautious, but to those bold enough to bring the fight to the enemy's doorstep. Beneath the waves of the Pacific still lies the twisted wreck of Tang, a silent monument to her men, and to the daring skipper who turned a steel machine into a legend.